In yesterday class, we have discussed about the Thomas Wright rule and the timestamp based method of concurrency control, that is total timestamp ordering. And today we are going to discuss about the partial timestamp ordering and the multi-version timestamp ordering. Next we will see the version based protocols. See the just theory first. The partial timestamp ordering. The timestamp ordering is partial. See, in partial timestamp ordering, only non-permittable actions are ordered to improve upon the total timestamp of ordering. Okay, so only non-permittable actions are ordered. The order is going to improve upon the total timestamp ordering. In this case, both read and write operations of timestamps are stored. The algorithm allows the granule to be read by any transaction that is younger than the last transaction that updated the granule. A transaction is aborted if it tries to update granule that has previously been accessed by the younger transaction. So what is partial transaction? Partial transaction timestamp ordering. So whenever the non-permittable actions we are performing, so to improve the order upon the total timestamp ordering of partial timestamp. In this case, the both read and write operations timestamps are storing. The algorithm allow the granule to be read by any transaction. This transaction is read by any transaction than the last transaction that updated the granule. A transaction is aborted if tries to update the granule that has previously been accessed by the younger transaction. In same like we have other transaction protocol, timestamp protocol, that is multi-version timestamp ordering protocol. The name itself is saying multi-version timestamp ordering protocol. Multi-versions. It contains the multiple versions of same item of X. If the data item is X, then it contains the multiple versions of same data item on X. See, we will see some points here on multi-version timestamp ordering protocol. So the name itself is saying what? Versions of same item. Here item means data item X. At that point, the transaction wants to read any item will read latest value of X according to its timestamp. Second point is what? the transaction wants read latest value of x according to timestamp. So in the multi-version timestamp ordering protocol, it contains multiple versions of same item of x, and the transaction which wants to read any item, okay, so that will read the latest value of x according to its timestamp. Okay, remember the points here. So here, what are the advantages and the drawback of multi-version timestamp means? So it's wasted lot of memory. Wasted lot of memory. But what is the advantage? It will have number of rollbacks. Here rollbacks are less comparing to other timestamp ordering protocols like total timestamp ordering protocol, strict timestamp ordering protocol, or the partial timestamp ordering protocol. Comparing to all these protocols, the rollbacks or number of rollbacks are less, and but the drawback here is it is wasting lot of memory. Because of what I will explain with the example, then you can understand. See here it is multi-version timestamp protocol, right? So you have number of protocols like this, multiple versions. Version 10 and 20 version, something versions, and the first version forming read operation and write operation. Read operation on timestamp, read timestamp of x data item. So we are performing read operation. So the timestamp of x, write timestamp of x data item. The initial values are 0 and 0. Here we are performing multiple transactions T1, T2 and so on. We are performing read operation on X data item in T1 transaction and read operation performing X data item in T2 transaction. So here timestamp of T1 is 100 and timestamp of T2 is 200. Now in the second version, 10th version, the read timestamp of x is what? 100, and write timestamp of x is equal to 100. Okay, and then the read timestamp of x equal to the second transaction, performing write operation of x and write operation of x data item. Here the read timestamp of x is 200 and write timestamp of x equal to 200. See here, I am going to do one new transaction. The timestamp of T3 transaction, so T1, T2 we have written already. So I am performing new transaction T3. So the value of timestamp is 50. Then what it overwrites? So it is latest one. So initial value 0, right? Here it overwrites read operation. And again I am going to perform read operation T4 transaction. Here the timestamp is 150. Then where it is going to be rewrite? So it performs here. So in that way it is performing multiple versions with the timestamp. So multiple version of same item is x, same item, and the transaction which wants to read any item will read latest value of x. So it is reading latest value of x. Okay. According to timestamp. According to timestamp is performing latest value of x. So here main thing, the drawback is because of these multiple versions, we are wasting lot of memory. And the advantage here is it will have least number of rollbacks. Here rollbacks are less. If any transaction has been interrupted, then it should roll back, right? Here the problem is less, so the rollbacks are also less comparing to other timestamp ordering protocols. Total timestamp ordering protocol is highest rollback. It contains highest rollback compared to base timestamp ordering protocol, and the less rollbacks having its timestamp, that is multi-version timestamp ordering protocol. So this multi-version timestamp ordering protocol having less rollbacks. So while performing reading operation, there is no rollback needed here. While performing read operation, so there is no rollback is needed here in multi-version timestamp ordering protocol. Okay, that's all about multi-version timestamp ordering protocol. Coming to other protocol, that is validation based protocol or optimistic concurrency control method or optimistic concurrency control protocol or certification based protocol, also called as certification protocol, also called as certification based protocol. Okay. validation protocol or validation based protocol or optimistic concurrency control method protocol or certification based. So next protocol is what? Validation based protocol or optimistic concurrency control. CC means concurrency control method or certification based protocol. Whatever in the exam they will ask means you should write the same answer. So this optimistic concurrency control method or protocol having 3 phases mainly. It contains 3 phases. First one is read phase. First one is what? Second one is validation phase. Third one is write phase. In validation based protocol, we validate the timestamps here. See one by one. See in the read phase. Read means what? Just we are writing 2 temporary variables. In the read phase, what we can do? Write 2 temporary variables. That means we are not writing directly onto the database. That means what? That means we are not writing directly to the database. Just we are writing the data items in the temporary variables at initial stage. So that is the read phase. That is what? The read phase. Okay. After that we have validation phase. What we are doing in this phase means the validation phase, it performs validation test. Validation test. That means whether the transaction can complete without violating serializability or not. In the validation test, what it checks? The transaction complete without violating serializability. Or not. So this validation checks what? Whether the transaction can complete without violating serializability. It is by using this we have any violation serialization or not. We will check. If yes, if yes means there is no violation, means violation in serializability means we can perform write phase. That means it performs write phase. Write means what? Write means what? Write means updating data into database. If it is valid, when in the valid phase, test valid data is valid. The through validation test, what it checks whether the transaction can complete without violating the serializability. Without violating the serializability means the transaction completes successfully. That means we don't have any disturbance. So that means we can perform the transaction successfully in that time. So what are the temporary variables we stored here means, so that data we can write directly into the database. We can update into the database. That is write phase. Write phase, or we can say execution phase also. Write phase or execution phase. So in the validation or certification based protocol or optimistic concurrency control method, we have mainly three phases. First one, read phase. Second one, validation phase, and write phase. Read phase, just we are writing into the temporary variables. That's not directly, we are not storing into the database. And coming to validation phase, it does the validation test that represents whether the transaction can complete without violating serializability. Success, that means without violating serializability, then we came to write phase. There we are writing the data into database. That means we are performing write operation. We are updating the transaction into database. So thus that phase is called write phase or execution phase. Write phase or execution phase. Here, second thing we have to discuss, that is optimistic. Here, why we call optimistic means, so everything is fine, is validated successfully. That is called optimistic. When we can put optimistic means, if everything done successfully, that means the transaction is success. Then we are going to optimistic. We are in optimistic. 3 timestamps. Follow 3 timestamps. So what are those timestamps? First one is start timestamp. Okay. Start timestamp. And the second one is validation timestamp. One is finish timestamp. So we have mainly 3 timestamps here. First one, start timestamp, validation timestamp, finish timestamp. See, in start timestamp, what we need to do? So what it is doing there? It starts the execution. Here, what it performs? Start of execution. That means what? Starts the transaction. Start timestamp. It starts the transaction. That means it starts the execution. here in the validation phase, in the validation timestamp, it starts the validation phase. This validation test we are going to perform here. Then if it is success, the validation is success, then the transaction is going to be finished. So in the finish transaction, finish timestamp, it ends it phase. Right phase. Okay, the start timestamp, start the execution means start the transaction. In validation timestamp starts the validation phase. That means it does the validation test. And the third one, that third timestamp is what? Finish timestamp. That means right phase is going to be end here. Okay, here we can say the timestamp of equal to validation time. The validation timestamp transaction T. That means the transaction everything is correct. If the transaction everything is correct, then the serialization validation using this timestamp is timestamp so this timestamp is same for the serialization of validation using timestamp validation timestamp of T. These are equal, same. Okay, say sir, how we can how it is performing validation test. See the conditions here, these are important. So validation test, validation test, what it performs, what are the conditions. The transaction TI means number of transactions. Transactions TI for all. Where is the for all symbol? All of Tj such that of timestamp of Tj less than the timestamp of I. See here, try to understand the number of transactions. So here it is not for single transaction. This is for all the transactions of Tj such that timestamp of Tj is less than timestamp of Ti. Then the first condition and the second condition should, at least one condition should satisfy. Okay, the first condition is what? Finish of Tj and part of okay or the second condition a than validation of transaction ti and read set of disjoint write that means what here see here see this condition finish of tj less than start of ti. That means tj finishes before ti starts. tj finishes before ti starts transaction. It finish transaction tj before start of transaction ti. Then tj written everything to database. This tj written everything into database. What is the meaning of this line? If tj finishes before the transaction ti starts, then tj written everything into the database. If tj is finishes before start of ti, then the tj is going to return everything into the database. R finish of tj, finish of transaction. If this tj is finished, the transaction tj is finished before the validation ti, and read set of ti is disjoint with the write set of tj. Read set of ti is disjoint with the write set of tj. So read set of ti is not affected on write set of tj. What is the meaning of this? The read set of ti is not affected on the write set of tj. Not affected on write set of tj. So here is no conflict. No conflict. Here is no conflict. Here is no conflict. So in these two conditions, any of these condition true, then validation is success. When the validation test pass, so any of these two conditions true, then the validation is pass. Okay, the test is pass. Then it is going to return the right case. Okay, are you getting? Yes, all of you. We have transaction T1 and T2. Okay. See now here, if transaction T1 and we have transaction T2. Here enters validation first earlier than T2. Here enters validation earlier than T2. T1 is enter here the validation is enters earlier than T2. Then there is nothing wrong. that means the validation steps performed correctly, then the serialization order, is T1. The serialization order is what? T1 then T2. So that means it increases the concurrency. So here is no need to roll back it. If transaction fails, does not pass the value. If the transaction is failed, it doesn't pass any value. Okay, that's all about the validation test. Are you understanding the validation test? In transaction T1 enters the validation earlier than T2. Earlier than T2 enters the validation in T1. So then T1 is first, then T2. So there is nothing wrong. The validation steps performed correctly. Then the serialization order is T1 then T2. T1 then T2. Okay. So what condition we must satisfy to validate the validation test is pass or not? So first, whether T1 Tj, here Tj finishes before Ti starts, then Tj return everything to database. If Tj finishes before Ti, that means Ti starts before Ti starts. If Tj finishes means that everything it is going to return into the database. That means we performed the successfully the transaction we have completed. That means if it is true, then you no need to check for this, or we have our condition here. Either at least one should true, then it is the validation test going to be finished successfully. Okay, the finish of Tj before the validation of Ti. Okay, and read set of Ti is disjoint with write set of Tj. Here read set of Ti is disjoint with write set of Tj means read of Ti is not affected on write of Tj. The read of Ti is not affected on Tj. Then that is the meaning of this. And if in these two conditions, if any one of this condition is true, then validation is passed. So that's all about the validation test. So that's all about the validation optimistic concurrency control method or certification based protocol. Okay, all of you, these are the important points here. And the validation test equation is this. Okay, that's all of you. Any doubts?